Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Movie Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we've watched recently.
And today we're doing
Sentimental Value.
And No Other Choice. So, Naina, do you want to kick us off?
I do. Primarily because I have thoughts, but there aren't many. And I feel like you seem to have more thoughts. So I'm just going to get
Do
this
I?
out of the way.
Listen, as a professional yapper, I always do have thoughts. But
Well-
you're coming under a hot assumption that I have a lot of thoughts. Also, mentioning that both of these films, no, actually, only one of these films is nominated for Best International Film at the Oscars.
And Best Picture.
Yes, Sentimental Value. Well, No Other Choice, if I'm correct, was in the long list.
Yes, it was in the long list.
Yeah, it was in the
Yeah.
long list, but didn't get
All
nominated.
right,
But
okay.
pretty anticipated. Go ahead.
Let's see how we react to both of them. Okay, so starting off with Sentimental Value.
Kan ikke snakke sammen engang.
Ja, men vad fan, läs det bara så ringer jag dig.
Slutt å ringe. Jeg hører at du er full. Slutt å ringe.
Men jag ringer för att jag är bekymrad om.
Ja, det har du ikke lov. Du har ikke lov til å være bekymret. Du har ikke lov.
Snälla Nora, läs den bara.
Hvorfor det? Det kommer ikke til å bli noe av uansett.
It's directed by Joachim, who also did The Worst Person in the World previously. And this is kind of like a follow-up. And it also stars the same main actress in the lead role as The Worst Person in the World, Renate Reinsve, who in this film plays Nora Borg, an actress who mainly does like theater. And it's set in kind of Norway, in Oslo.
Mhm.
It also has opposite, but not really opposite, Renate Reinsve, Stellan Skarsgård as her father, Gustav Borg. And we know how much I love a Skarsgård, right? Any Skarsgård. Just
Love a Skarsgård. They're the best acting family. Just, I don't know what else to tell you.
Agreed.
Like, they're such a good acting family.
agreed. And Stellan being Papa Skarsgård, has this,
Papa Stars.
he has this aura
Like, I
around
just
him.
like to imagine him with a like big satchel bringing in Christmas presents, but in a very Scandinavian, Norwegian way.
Exactly.
Just like those Norwegian Christmas, you can
Exactly.
imagine Stellan Skarsgård is Santa Claus.
Exactly. Such a Norwegian way brings me to my point about this film, which is it's extremely Scandinavian in the sense that a lot of it went right through me because of how subtle and how the silent nuances and the unsaid bits. While I appreciate a good unsaid bit generally, there's a certain limit to how much unsaid there can be. And this is not a call out of Scandinavian culture, but more of a, I wish I understood it better.
Literally, SNL just had wait.
Alexander. It was Alexander.
Yes, thank you so much.
I keep up with the Skarsgårds.
So SNL had and they did like multiple sketches of like one was a Scandinavian movie and one was like the Scandinavian dad talking about how he raises his child, and then his dad also how he raised him. And both of what you described is just basically that film.
Yes.
Both of those
Yes.
Scandinavianness of the movie that you described is literally what the sketches are talking about.
Literally, SNL could have picked up those skits, and I'm assuming they must have picked up those skits from Sentimental Value as a spoof. Right. So to get into a little bit of the plot, the film basically follows Gustav and Nora's sister Agnes, who is played by
Mhm.
Inga Ipsdotter Lilias.
We're trying our best.
Yeah, who have, just lost their mom, who Gustav had split from. And basically, it's a story of how they've reunited after like a troubling, tumultuous childhood for Nora and Agnes, and, a very uncertain adulthood with regards to their relationship with their parents and their heritage and their ancestry, etc., etc. And basically, Gustav is a filmmaker, like a well-known filmmaker, and he approaches Nora with a script, which Nora flat out declines because she's like, I am not working with you.
Okay.
And so then Gustav finds instead this American actress, Rachel Kemp, played by Elle Fanning. Fantastically, by the way. Love Elle Fanning in this.
Al Fanning.
Token American, like Brendan Fraser was.
Glad glad the white people are getting diversity within the white people.
Yeah. And you know what? I believe every country has their own token American, and this is Norway's token American.
Al Fanning.
Yeah, so basically, Nora declines to play the main character in Gustav's new script, despite him saying that, he wrote it like with her in mind. And so he just happens to meet Rachel Camp, and he then hires her to play it. And then basically we spend the rest of the film seeing how their lives, along with Agnes's life, kind of just progress during a certain period of time, which is framed by Gustav trying to get this film made. And I'm not going to say anything about like where it ends up, because I feel like a lot of the appeal of the film is the process of kind of watching where this plot is going to go. And I think I really appreciate the writing, which is done by Eskil Voigt and Joachim Trier as well. The details of the plot, such as Gustav's mother was tortured during World War II, during the Nazi occupation.
Oh, okay.
And, how she commits suicide because of, the pain and the
Trauma?
depression and the trauma and the grief and stuff like that. So it is really like littered with a lot of details that ground these characters in a deep history.
Okay.
And all of it is kind of held up by the framework of this house that the family has been living in for like generations and generations and generations. And, the house has always had cracks in it. And it's all very metaphorical for dysfunctional families.
The moment you're explaining this to me, and I'm like, there's a house and like there's war wounds and like this is just generational trauma. This is a metaphor for generational trauma, isn't it?
That's what I was getting to. This film is a gigantic metaphor for generational trauma and how it, is embodied in the body, and, how the body, keeps track of all its historical griefs and how personal griefs and, familial problems, and how trauma is passed down and both developed. And, it deals a lot with mental health as well. And, how the relationship between Nora and Agnes, the two sisters, how that's fragile, but also like one of the strongest ones, because they're what kept each other alive while their parents were, fighting and stuff.
Again, am I getting too firm analytical with it? Is it that deep? But I feel even the poster, when you look at it, it's like the picture within the picture within the picture within the picture, which further like cements this trauma that's held within us that we trap ourselves in.
Exactly.
Idea.
There is a scene in the film where Gustav and Nora's faces are kind of overlapped over one another, and they kind of come in and out where superimposed, but then they move in and out. So like half of the face is Stellan Skarsgård, the other half is Renee Reinsve, and then a ear here and like an eye here and a chin here, and
like a double exposure.
Exactly. And that kind of conveys what the poster conveys as well, is that these two people are so alike to one another, but because of that there's bound to be clashes and there's bound to be conflict. And even if they weren't alike to each other, like Agnes and Gustav, there is bound to be conflict because of the way, the family is set up. So I think this film does a really good job of, filling its plot with all these details and metaphors and references.
Mm-hmm.
It gives it a lot of potential for, I don't know any other way to put this than meatiness.
Okay. But why do you feel, like you mentioned up top, that it went over you a lot? Why do you feel like it just didn't connect with you as strongly as I feel like? Because this award season was entering, this film was literally like one of those films people were like, oh, this is probably a front runner, or like this is definitely getting in. It has buzz around it from the start.
And I see that, which is why I mentioned this. The meatiness that I'm talking about is potential, right? But to me, it stops at potential, and the delivery of that potential is where it stumbles. Especially because the film has such a deep emotional core that it sets up. But I did not feel emotionally impacted for even, longer than 30 seconds. And I'm not going to chalk that up to the acting, because I think the acting is fantastic. I'm not going to chalk that up to, not enough circumstances or narrative. I just think it's because I don't have any connection. I do not feel the film trying to build a connection with the characters. They're really well fleshed out. There is no connect with an audience, or I did not feel the connect with an audience.
Do you think part of this is just like like certain films are just so inside baseball Hollywood that they're not as relatable for the mainstream audience as it is for people in the industry? Like, and also like not every critic is in the industry, but they're much more like embedded within it than people outside it.
Agreed,
So like a
agreed.
film which is like talking about like a writer as a dad and like the struggles of like the industry and like this and the relationship they have, which is like to some degree like flawed very much. So is it just the chance that it's not connecting because it's just not relatable to most people in that way? Even though like generational trauma is very relatable. There's two
That
brown people talking here. Generational trauma is very
yeah,
relatable.
for sure. And because of that, I don't necessarily think it's a relatability problem, although it might be that as well. But for me, it was more just this is sad. I can intellectually understand that this is sad, but nothing about it is making me feel sad for the characters. The sadness and the grief is not being translated well enough for me. Whereas, in certain films, the grief, like Hamnet, for example, it's very distinct. It's very clear. It comes across to you. It feels evocative. This just doesn't feel as evocative. And that's probably because the characters also feel some way they're kind of emotionally hollowed out by all this.
You think repressed is a
trauma.
better word, or hollowed out?
Hollowed out. They're repressed for
Okay.
sure. They're repressed for sure, but that's the character. The hollowing out is what the writing does, and that hollowing out is
Okay.
they're hollowed out of like real emotion, for example, because they're filled with so much trauma and grief.
Okay, the way you make it sound makes me feel like I could watch this and connect with this. Not to like discount from the critiques, but it feels much more based on like a personal preference.
Yes. And I have spoken with people who have had the same personal reference in the sense
Okay.
that the writing of the characters feels so like contradictory because it feels packed at the same time and so nothing at the same time. So I think that's where the film loses out for me. And also where it loses out is kind of the middle act of the film, where it drags a little in terms of pacing. Like a lot happens at the start, a lot happens at the end. And then the middle just stretches and stretches and stretches. And I know it's, nothing happening in the narrative is meant for character development or character like fleshing out of character. But again, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but they needed to stop with the characters.
I'll be very honest. This is not the best thing to say, but part of me is like, oh, I was genuinely looking forward to this. I hope if I get the chance, I do want to watch it and see if I do have a different
No,
reaction.
400%. I would never tell anyone to not watch any movie. Like, I'm a big believer in go and watch whatever movie you want to watch. And I would definitely say watch this movie because it isn't a bad film. It's a good film in the sense that it has all these characteristics that build up a good film. The score is well done. The cinematography is beautiful. The acting is fantastic from the entire cast. It's just there are certain elements of it that kind of make me not fall in love with it as I would perhaps fall in love with a different kind of film.
Fair enough. Just to end with my favorite letterbox review that I've seen for this film, which is apparently having a movie director for a father is not as fun as Francesca Scorsese's Instagram account makes it seem. Which is just a very inside of baseball review. If you've ever seen Martin Scorsese's daughter's Instagram page, I would highly, highly recommend checking it out. It's very fun. Martin Scorsese reacting to certain film reviews is just, chef's kiss.
And that's on repressed Scandinavians.
Okay, so speaking of films we were looking forward to, but didn't connect with as much. No other choice.
뽀개가지고 원실도 짓고 그네도 달고 내가 하나하나 구석구석
여보, 어차피 집 뺏겨 파산하면. 피아노하고 거실 탁자랑 의자 2개, TV, 커튼, 카펫 다 당근에 내.
So this was on one of my like most anticipated films
Yes.
list. It is directed by Park Chan-wook. Park Chan-wook also like made Old Boy. He's made Decision to Leave, Handmaiden. Like has a lot of solid films behind it. It's like a very prominent South Korean filmmaker, right? And it's also starring Lee Byung-sung, who I just realized is he voiced Gi Ma in K-pop Demon Hunters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That was like a fun
All
little
right.
thing that I just learned. He was also in Squid Game and some other films. Like he's also in Hollywood films, right? But
Yes.
basically, this film, it is about a man who loses his job and finds himself continuously like escalating on what he would do to get a new job or get his job back.
Okay.
But it is doing much more than that. It is definitely commenting on much more than that in sometimes very interesting ways, right?
I would
So-
expect so from a Park Chan-wook.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think this film's biggest strength is how it does manage to sway tones with such finesse that you
Mhm.
never really you never caught off guard by it or anything. Like it's seamless to a genuine extent.
I'm interested to know what you mean by sway tones. Like, whoa.
So this film is, I think, like if you were looking for like a overall genre, I think dark comedy makes the most sense. But it
Okay.
is also at parts just a drama, like thriller type thing. I wouldn't like it is doing a lot of things. It has a lot of elements to it, and that's when I say it's done. That there are certain parts of it. If I showed you that 15-minute sequence, you'll be like, "This is a comedy." If I show you another 15, like this might be a bit more of a satire. Another 15, and you're like, "Is this
So
just like a
it's-
thriller?" That's what I mean.
So it's also in a way like genre blending.
Oh, 100%. It really is genre blending. Because as soon as he leaves his job, basically, it kind of starts escalating from the, and not leaves his job, he's fired from his job by a big American company who buys the paper company he works for. So,
Mm.
not any subtle commentary there.
No comments about the recapitalization of East Asia.
But yeah, and then the film literally starts off with like this perfect life that he got. And I know, I'm telling you, when I say perfect life, I genuinely mean like the full exact nuclear family that your dad grilling while like you have one boy, one girl plays instrument, you have two dogs, both golden retrievers, like exact nuclear family that you're thinking about.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
and I think even that is just like such a great setup in that way to make it like immediately in the first 5 minutes. Even if you went into this film blind, you could have not, like, it's just so obvious that he's setting up this little nice little tower to like kick it down.
Oh, that feels like such a mischievous, like, and fun thing to start a film with, because from the get-go, you're like goading the audience.
Yeah, exactly. It's like tantalizing the way, because the character literally goes like something along the lines of everything is perfect, or like everything is complete, and something like that. I was like, this is like someone saying it sounds very quiet in here just before like a major things happen.
Or someone saying Macbeth on a stage for all my theater people.
The millennial thing of like, you and what army? So then basically he goes from like, can't find a job, 3 months I'll find a job, can't find a job, 13 months. And then he interviews for a job. So he figures out what other people would definitely get the job over him. And then basically starts a plan to, I'm going to kill these people. So I'm the only one left who was good enough that basically kill the people who would probably get it over me. So I'm the only obvious choice left.
As you do.
As you do, like a normal thing normal people decide to do.
Exactly.
And I think once that scheme starts, I think this is like you're into like 40 minutes into that film, right?
Mhm.
It set up the family set up. And I think this is where the film did lose me a bit. This film is 2 hours 20 around, right? Including credits. And I think up till the hour mark, it's everything set up. You understand where it's going. But I think after that, the film takes so much time sometimes doing certain things that I feel you as the audience are like, where is this going? Are we still on track to what we were planning to do? Because, and I think the issue also compounds because of how Park Chan-wook directs the film and how he's also co-written it with some several other people, and how it's written. It is really good at showing you and not telling you. There were moments where I was like, I'm not sure what's happening, but then 20 minutes into the film, I'm like, okay, I understood that scene 20 minutes ago now.
Sure.
Because why would the character say it out loud? You're just going to see it happen.
Yes.
Perfectly fine. I think that's when done really well, it works really well because that's like one of the seminal rules, right? Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
But when you don't show me anything and I'm just confused for 30 minutes, then I'm just a bit lost. And I'm like, why are we spending so much time? Is he still having the original plan? Why are we deviating so much? And so I think it's just in that middle bit where I felt it lost. But again, to its credit, I think it did get me back a lot towards the end, where you see this corruption kind of fully take him hold. And obviously, there's a lot of metaphors going on with like visual imagery. Like he has a tooth that is decaying and it hurts him throughout the whole film until like his final big thing that he does at the end, final sin kind of moment where he just has the enough of a willpower to take that tooth out with a plier.
Okay. Lots of things happening here metaphorically.
And then there's lots of imagery of ladybugs eating leaves and plants and like trees dying off in that way.
So a lot of like nature and natural things rotting.
Yeah, lots of rotting, which again talks to him, his soul being rotted away. Because where this film ends up is him in that same paper mill. Again, spoilers. I should have said that before. Spoilers. Where this film ends up is him in that same paper mill by himself because all of the workers have been replaced by machines. And in the start, he is literally talking about not wanting to replace the workers. The film starts off with this critique on like bigger companies in general, but it also like hones that critique into an individual level as well, where no one asked him to do this. It also, in comparison to his wife, is also critiquing masculinity to a large extent. And you see this through the other male character, other like guys that he kills to get the job. The female characters are showing case as like, we did not care for you to do this. You did not need to struggle for this long. You could have gotten any other job. This was much more about boosting your ego and you feeling you needed to get to where you needed to than any of us caring. He doesn't want to sell the house because even though his wife is like, we could be in an apartment, he doesn't want to leave the car. He doesn't want free treatment from her wife's boss, who's a dentist, because again, it hurts his ego. It's always subtly also having a conversation about how much this need for work being fulfilling, a lot of it, how much it is centered around just this male need to be validated and feel like you are the man of the house or like.
Yeah, so it sounds like the problems of life, if you will, aren't just chalked up to, institutionalized problems, but also kind of the film shows how individuals are also to be held accountable for some of the institutional problems, and institutional issues obviously shape a lot of these things, like how toxic masculinity works and how capitalism works, etc. But when you keep boiling it down, even the individual has a certain amount of agency. Like the title itself.
And responsibility as well.
Yeah, responsibility more. Yeah, because the title kind of implies this question of agency of like no other choice. Like what, and from what you're saying, it kind of sounds like agency plays a big role. But I feel like the question of responsibility is where the main critique comes up. That's what it sounds like.
Exactly. Like when you mentioned the title, no other choice, that's like a question mark. It's not meant to be a statement, in my opinion. It's meant to be a question of, is there genuinely no other choice? Because there always is. There always is. They don't want to take it realistically. This is not the obvious choice to do. So yeah, I think it is commenting on a lot of things. It's commenting on, again, this rotting nature of this hustle and this capitalistic mindset of achievement and this perfect family and all of those things, and how it basically rots him away at the end until he and his family are no longer what they were. It basically breaks up this whole thing and then puts it together, but you can see it's broken now. It's never going to go back to where it was. I think that's where it does
Yes.
succeed at its finest. Again, I think some of those elements where it was switching to different tone and something, while it does do that very effectively, I think sometimes it just stayed in there for too long where I just kind of got lost in the sauce, so to speak. I think that's why I'm like, I left it and I was like, I'm going to be thinking about this because it was doing a lot of things interesting, but I don't think I'm going to be thinking about this as like, this was such an incredible movie and I think everyone should watch it.
I think we both had the same reactions to these two really anticipated films,
Yeah.
which I think is
And I think that might just also speak to like the nature of a building anticipation.
exactly. That's what I was getting to, which is like, yeah, the anticipation plays a big role in the fact that, you know, we had certain expectations of these films. And I don't know if we would have had a different response had there been no expectations, but you know, this is the response we have had. And I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah. And lastly, also like you mentioned, like double exposure shots that Sentimental Value did.
Yeah.
This also does some really fun double exposure shots where, because most oftentimes how we're like treated to like dissolves and double exposure, it's like you dissolve from one scene to the next. But sometimes what he does, he dissolves halfway through and then just goes back to the original scene, which I think is just such a fascinating like double take on like connecting you to the scene, connecting you to the. It just uses cinematic technique really wonderfully and like has fun with it in a weird way, where you're like, it breaks certain ideas of what you think only ways to do something, and like, so which makes it again much more of an interesting watch. This film is a very interesting watch. You should see it.
Yeah, sounds good.
And again, to end on a letterbox review from my side, it just sums it up perfectly. What being on LinkedIn for 13 months does to a mother.
Hey, you know what? There's no way we can't relate.
And that is the show. So yeah, those were our thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is produced solely by us with musical assets from Pixabay. If you enjoyed this, please do share. See you again next time.
Bye-bye.